Only Buffalo is going to win it, folks.
The Bills make me wanna shout. Kick your heels up and shout.
We're seeing why the Buffalo Bills are en route to the playoffs.
Come on now, the Bills are making it happen now. Stand up now, come on and shout. Yeah,
Buffalo Bills go undefeated. And we're going to the Super Bowl.
right now, baby. Come on, come on.
No one
Come on
Circles the
and
wagon
shout.
like the Buffalo Bills.
All right, we are live, and we are back. Welcome to another episode of the Overdue Bills podcast. And we're excited today. We're definitely excited today. We come in today with another special guest this week. Kind of chop it up with us about this preview of the Buffalo Bills at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this Sunday at 4 o'clock. I guess they kind of flexed the game to 4 o'clock. I'm not necessarily sure why it went to 4 and not 8, but, you know, the NFL is the NFL. But before we do that, let's introduce, my guy, Matt, a.k.a. Matty Ice. Matt, what's up, man?
Nothing much, man. You know, I'm ready to, we got that game last week behind us. I'm ready to talk some football, some Bills football.
Absolutely. Definitely excited. And we have a very, very special guest, and we definitely appreciate him for his time. And we got Brother David Harrison. And Brother David, if you can, just let the people know who you are and, why we actually kind of bring you on the show, like your expertise.
Yeah, so I'm one of the hosts of the Locked On Bucs podcast, a daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for the Locked On Podcast Network. I also write for BucsNation.com over at SB Nation. In addition to that, I also cover the Washington football team. I'm not sure how that's going to really apply to this game necessarily, but that's something that I do as well. And I've been covering the Buccaneers now. This is my 7th season, I think, covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So.
Interesting. Definitely appreciate him for coming on. And before we kind of get into the show, Matt, can you please let the people know who our presenting sponsor is?
Yes, sir. This episode and every other episode is brought to you by none other than Buffalo Wing Kings. There's two things the guys over here at the Overdue Bills podcast know. That's Bills football, and that's wings. Our first choice and the best choice is Buffalo Wing Kings. At Wing Kings is Wings 101. With over 101 different flavors and their beloved Wing of the Month special, Wing Kings is sure to school every other wing place around. Hit them up for Bills games, parties, graduations, just any event or any time of the week you want to go get some wings. Hit up Buffalo Wing Kings. Stop down to their Elmwood Village location at 484 Elmwood Avenue or give them a call at 716-248-1427 and find out why they say, and we know they got the best wings in town, hands down. Make sure you mention our name, Overdue Bills Podcast. Get 10% off your order.
Absolutely. Definitely mention our name. We appreciate Buffalo Wing Kings for sponsoring this show. And let me just do a little bit of housekeeping just to let you know, once again, overduebillspod.com. Overduebillspod.com. We want everybody to go there. We appreciate you, following us on all the socials. But we just want to let you know we do have, our merch still there. We thank all of you for supporting the show, for supporting, all of us. And just to let everybody know, we just coming back, with some more great content. And we thank you. All right, let's get into the show real quickly. Quick question of the day. All right, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. We're kind of gonna, force our way into this conversation, because a lot of talk has been, right, Tom Brady is 32-3 against the Buffalo Bills for his all-time record, right? Obviously, all of those games are with the New England Patriots, who he's not with now, even though we just lost to him the other day. But anyways, so with that being said, I did want to ask a question to you, Dave, and Matt, you can answer right after him. With Tom Brady having so much success against the Bills, do you think that kind of dominance kind of rolls over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or that, that vibrato, that confidence, right? That he kind of owns us, like literally owns us. We can't not really beat him. And, he's going to another team, so different circumstance. But do you think that confidence kind of rolls over?
I think the confidence that you find in Tom Brady that's kind of bled over with the Buccaneers squad is less a confidence in what they can do to the other team versus what they can do themselves when they go up against another team. I know that kind of sounds similar, but in the aspect that Aaron Rodgers kind of believes he owns the Chicago Bears, I think Tom Brady really doesn't come in with it as as kind of I own the Buffalo Bills or any other, potential AFC East former rival of his. It's more so he comes in looking to rise up to the challenge of that team, trying to unseat his team and kind of dismantle some of the hard work that they've put in. So I think there's definitely going to be a nice level of confidence there in this team. And a lot of that does stem from Tom Brady, but it's less so. It's more so internally focused confidence than it is an externally focused confidence. But even though he's not part of the Patriots anymore, obviously, like you referenced, he knows this Buffalo Bills team to a certain extent more than most quarterbacks in this position would be, being an interconference matchup this weekend. He's seen Coach McDermott. He's seen their systems. He's seen what they like to do. He's gone up against some of these players before and lined up on the other side of the field from them. So that familiarity certainly is going to play, I think, a hand in it and help his preparation as well as the rest of the offenses. But from a confidence standpoint, I think, like I said, it's more so what he believes the Buccaneers are capable of doing versus his dominance per se over the Bills franchise over the years.
Interesting. And I want to go to you, Matt, because obviously, we know the history, right? We don't have to, regurgitate the history of Tom Brady. We understand, what he did to us for so many years. So, Matt, do you feel that, right? Do you feel that confidence with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going to Tampa Bay, kind of first time in a long time? Do you feel like it's like, here we go again? Or is it like a new confidence we're bringing?
Well, if had you asked me this question week one, I would have had a completely different answer. But I think some of the guys that have been here a couple years, I know Treme Edmonds and players in the defense, they talked about it, that they've faced him, and he's still as great as he was the first time they played against him, if not better. So in a sense, from the players, I think some of them are going in with we've played against him before, and he's we're gonna give him everything we got. We kind of know what he has and what he's really good at. So I think there's some kind of confidence in there. From a fan standpoint, I'm definitely looking at it like I'm coming in like, all right, well, he's definitely owned us, and I'm kind of going with oh man, here we go again. Here goes Brady in another scenario where he probably can beat us.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like when I was obviously researching and looking at the stats, like 32-3, it's like, oh my god, like don't remind me. But it's kind of scary because this team may be even better than some of those teams that we have played. And even when you look at the 3 games that the Bills won, it was kind of a wash anyway. But nonetheless, it's definitely going to be an interesting matchup. With Josh and Tom. But before we really get into like kind of the nitty gritty of the game matchup schemes and that, I do want to go to the injury report. And I want to hear your thoughts, Matt, first. And David, I want you to, come behind that because we have one of our guys, Star Tatule, out, right? And he's quote unquote our run stopper, right? He's our guy in the middle. Sort of a poor, I don't want to say a poor man's Vita Vea, but you know what I mean? Like in that, like we kind of liken him to that type of player, but he's out, Matt. So Matt, like how do you feel about that? And can you talk about any other injuries that are significant to the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, so he's out, and obviously you alluded to that he is our run stopper, and as bad as the Bills defense was last week, they have been pretty decent against the run all season long. So without a cog like that in the middle, it does hinder guys, like a Tremaine Edmonds or linebackers, back there that kind of depend on him to eat up that space, or an Ed Oliver who's able to kind of run free in those scenarios when he takes up another guy. So that is a huge loss because we're playing against a guy in Leonard Fournette who's been pretty hot the last couple of weeks. So that is definitely a significant loss. And as far as somebody else out on the injury report, there was, hold on, I just had it. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
he was out.
Oh.
Sweeney? What were you gonna say?
Not Sweeney.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, not Tommy Sweeney. Cole Beasley.
Okay.
He didn't practice. But I think he's gonna go on Sunday. I think he's fine. It was just kind of like an illness thing this week. So other than that, Star is obviously the huge loss. Everybody else kind of just like as a vet day or illness type of thing.
Okay. Dave, can you talk about the Tampa Bay injury report? And is there any person that is significant to the team that we may not necessarily know about, like the big names?
Yeah, I mean, I think first start off with Jamel Dean, the cornerback there. I mean, he's the team's number 3 cornerback, really kind of in the grand scheme of things, but then the number 2 and just the injuries that the Buccaneers have been dealing with in the secondary all season long. Jamel Dean suffered a concussion in last week's game. He's been a full participant for the last 2 days of practice and, and all that. So there's a little bit of confidence there. And Bruce Arians was confident in the beginning of the week that he was also going to be able to play. So you believe that he's probably going to be out there, which obviously is going to help the Buccaneers defense deal with the several weapons that the Buffalo Bills have in their receiving game. Jordan Whitehead, their starting strong safety, is going to be out. We kind of already expected him to be out. The team has been preparing for him to be out. Suffered a calf injury a couple weeks ago that the team has stated is probably going to keep him out for a significant amount of time. But I think the biggest development coming on Friday is that Richard Sherman, the cornerback, veteran cornerback, obviously was activated. And we learned earlier in the week that Todd Bowles and his position coaches have actually been cross-training Richard Sherman to play a little bit of safety. And I think that with Sherman's proven track record of having a very high football IQ, his ability to kind of adapt very quickly. I mean, came off the street basically of not playing football for the first 9 weeks of the NFL season and did relatively well from what you expect from a guy entering that situation. Of course, he ends up with an injury himself and has missed some time. But in reality, that actually may play into a little bit of advantage here for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they have all kinds of film on Josh Allen, Emmanuel Sanders, Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, Dawson Knox, and what the Buffalo Bills offense may try to do against a Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense that's very good at stopping the run up front and forcing the team to go ahead and throw the ball to try to make do some damage against them. But what the Buffalo Bills don't have is a whole lot of film of what this secondary looks like with Jamel Dean, Sean Murphy, Bunting, and Carlton Davis all on the field at the same time. And then you add Richard Sherman into the mix. Todd Bowles, one of the most creative defensive minds in the NFL, one of the better defensive coordinators. Because of that, there's a lot of different looks and a lot of different things that he can do. The Kansas City Chiefs saw a safety in the Super Bowl line up over the A-gap and blitz right over the center where a nose guard, nose tackle usually would line up. So there's a lot of things that Todd Bowles can do with this group of defensive players if he does, in fact, have all of them active on Sunday, that the Buffalo Bills right now just frankly don't have any film to look at to prepare for.
I think that's interesting. Definitely, I didn't know Richard Sherman was cross training and possibly could play safety because even towards the latter years of a lot of good corners' careers, like that transition to safety can be a good one. Like we've seen that work in previous cornerbacks NFL careers. So I mean, it's definitely something to look at. I'm definitely glad you said that. But I do want to get into some matchups, some scheme things. And I do want to start with the offensive side because in looking at the game, preparing, especially for this preview show, one of the things that kind of stood out to me, and I want to talk to David about it first, is this idea of tall receivers versus small cornerbacks, right? I know that's kind of it's kind of common, like cornerbacks are generally smaller, but for us specifically, the Buffalo Bills, with a Tre'Davious White being out for this season or for the rest of the duration of the season, and us having to put our backup Dane Jackson in, who's miniature, comparatively speaking, and also Levi Wallace, who's not necessarily a big guy, not necessarily tall nor big, and even Tyron Johnson, our nickel, he's not necessarily a huge guy. We're going against a Godwin, right? Massive receiver. We're going against Mike Evans, who's a mammoth of a man, right? And not to mention, Gronkowski, OJ Howard, Rashad Perriman, so on and so forth. So, do you think that that's a huge advantage for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, size is always going to be an advantage, and speed can always, play a part in that as well. And that's what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have kind of done a good job of doing, and that really goes to Jason Licht, the general manager, because a lot of these players, you talk about Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Cameron Brate, the team's number 2 tight end. OJ Howard, we mentioned him, but he's his snaps have gone down significantly over the last few weeks. I'm not sure how much OJ we're going to see in this game, but he is still there. He's still available, and he is still a physical specimen, definitely, that the Buffalo Bills should be preparing to see in case they do see him on the field. The Buccaneers have done a really good job over the years of accumulating weapons that can attack opposing defenses from various parts of the field. And I think Chris Godwin, the first receiver you mentioned, is kind of the most dynamic of the ones that are available, with Antonio Brown being suspended right now. Chris Godwin can hurt a defense in the screen game. He can hit the intermediate part of the passing game, but he can also take a defense deep. So for the Buffalo Bills, they're absolutely going to have to game plan for that, and the physicality that guys like Mike Evans bring to the field. He has a reputation of drawing some offensive pass interferences or penalties, and that may very well happen. You kind of hope in a game that we probably expect to see a lot of passing in, that the officiating crew is going to let these guys play and let the play on the field, let the players decide who wins this game. No matter what side of the ball it is. That's what I think every football fan would like, is a physical contest. But I think if that's what happens, then the Buccaneers have the clear advantage just because of size and athletic ability that's going to be available with, especially with Tre'Davious White missing.
Right. Matt, how do you feel about that, right? Do you think that it's something where we can scheme up, some things, whereas I'm not sure, right? Do you think that Leslie Frazier and McDermott will try to have some like safety help over the top, for Dane Jackson, for Levi Wallace? Or do you think it's like, okay, listen, this is your man, you just figure it out? Like, how do you feel?
Yeah, it's really tough because we can scheme up whatever. Tom Brady actually he's getting the ball not just to the the big guys, the big three, I guess you would call them, that are going to play this week. He's spreading it around. He's thrown touchdowns to 9 different players on the field. I mean, granted, Evans, Gronk, and Godwin are his leaders, but they're the only team with a group of receivers, 3 or more that have 5 touchdowns. So
Wow.
that's a big deal. So I think no matter what, they're gonna have to try to just play man and win their matchups. I mean, obviously you're gonna need some safety support at some time, but Brady's just so good at getting other people involved that I don't know how they're gonna be able to scheme that. But I will say the Bills do play very well on the road. They're the league leading team on the road. They only give up 4.6 yards per play. So that that for some reason they just bring it really well on the road. So I'm interested to see what they scheme up and try to. They also limit the big plays. So it's really hard to get over the top on those guys. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they scheme up for them.
Interesting. And I wanted to ask David this to stay on kind of the offensive side and the pass catchers, because right, we do have a Micah Hyde and a Poyer, right? 2 safeties who are heavily touted in the league, right? And I'm sure at least one of their primary jobs will be to stick Rob Gronkowski, right? Do you think that this is a situation where, since we do have these safeties and they will be checking Rob Gronkowski, that Brady will kind of try to get everybody else involved? Or is a situation whereas is the offense to take what the defense gives you, or it's like, okay, we have our philosophy, we're going to do it, and you have to stop it? How do you feel the approach is this game?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. The Buccaneers are going to definitely run some deep routes. They're going to stress those corners. They're going to stress the safeties. And if Poyer and Hyde shrink down into the box or a little bit, or into the intermediate part of the design of the play to cover a Rob Gronkowski or an over the middle cutting wide receiver, or even Leonard Fournette coming out of the backfield, then you're going to see Brady try to take some shots to Mike Evans in single coverage, Chris Godwin as well in single coverage. If the Buffalo Bills secondary does what a lot of teams have done this season against the Buccaneers with a relatively good amount of success in containing the offense, which is to play a high shell type of defense with at least 1 safety deep, if not 2, then you're going to see Tom Brady take a lot of the checkdowns. And that's where you see Rob Gronkowski get more involved in the middle of the field as the linebackers spread out to try to cover as much of the field as they can and collapse on the ball. So Tom Brady is going to do whatever he needs to do. And if Leonard Fournette ends up as a leading receiver with a win, Tom Brady is going to be happy. And if Mike Evans ends up as a leading receiver, he's going to be happy as well. So really, it's going to be up to the Buffalo Bills to choose if they want to run the risk of getting beat deep or trust their guys to go one-on-one with some of those wide receivers on deeper routes, or if they want to play the contained game, make the Buccaneers grind out drives, earn every point that they get, don't let the explosive plays kill them, and hope that they can do enough on the offense to outscore the Buccaneers. That's really kind of just going to be up to them. My personal recommendation, I think I would probably say make the Buccaneers offense grind out. Grind the ball, extend every drive as long as you can. You don't want Tom Brady on the field very much, but if you can reduce the game to 10, 11 possessions versus 13, 14 possessions, then you potentially have the opportunity to give your offense time to do things as well. And this Buccaneers team, just at certain points throughout the season, you look back at the losses against the New Orleans Saints and the Washington football team, they have shot themselves in the foot here and there. Some inaccuracy from Tom Brady early on, some tip passes, some inaccurate routes by some of the receivers, and then fumbles. The Buccaneers have opened the door to opponents who do make them grind it out to get huge takeaways and potentially steal an upset.
That's interesting, right? Because on the one hand, we talk about the pass catchers, but in this idea of containing and grinding the game out, I guess, maybe a couple weeks ago, I would be like, all right, this is the method. But I guess one of the issues is our run defense, right? And we've seen it, or lack of run defense, on display against I get a myriad of teams, right? I don't have to say Derrick Henry gashed us, Jonathan Taylor gashed us, and even New England Patriots, even though they ran the ball literally all the time, they still had a decent day against us. So with that being said, do you think it's a situation, and Matt, you can answer right after, is this a Fournette game? Right. I mean, obviously, Bruce Arians and Leftwich has seen the tape, right? They watched the game. And Tom Brady being so close to a Bill Belichick, being so close to a McDaniels, right? He kind of understands the psyche of that, even though it was a weather game, so to speak. I mean, is it a situation? Do you think Tom Brady is like, okay, we're just gonna check down and run the ball down their throats? Because I've seen like the Tampa Bay on certain teams where it's like run after run after run after run until you stop me. Like, is this a heavy dose of Leonard Fournette?
I think the team enjoys passing the ball so much that you're going to get a nice solid mix of the passing game in there, especially early on now. If they build a lead, especially a 2 or a 3 score lead at some point in the game, then yeah, I think you'll see a lot of more running. You'll see a mixture of Ronald Jones getting in there, maybe some Giovanni Bernard. But look, Leonard Fournette has been kind of the centerpiece, the most consistent centerpiece of this offense for quite a few weeks now.
Right.
And my co-host James Jarko over in the Locked On Bucks podcast actually just on our Friday episode that published this morning coined the phrase "Buffa Lenny." So Leonard Fournette, I don't know how many fan bases outside of Tampa are aware. Leonard Fournette is the man of many nicknames, right? So you have playoff Lenny that came through during the 2021 or 2020 playoffs. You have Lombardi Lenny that showed up in the Super Bowl, and then you had the rise of regular season Lenny, followed by Rob Gronkowski coined the term Leonard Four Tutties Nets, and then you also have Lucas Oil Lenny. So just all kinds of versions of nicknames for Leonard Fournette. Just kind of shows you the importance that his role has really taken on. So Buffa Lenny is what my co-host is looking forward to. And, it's easy to look at the stats and say that, the Buccaneers have the 25th ranked rushing offense in the National Football League. They're averaging less than 100 yards per game on the ground. But Leonard Fournette is getting many more touches than just in the running game. And that's kind of the extension of the run game and the short passing game. So again, you go back to the Buffalo Bills having to choose their poison. If they play that soft coverage, that shell coverage to keep Mike Evans from the big plays, keep Chris Godwin from turning an 8-yard completion into a 15-yard gain, they're going to see a lot of Leonard Fournette in the open field in the short area. And that's where your linebackers are going to have to come up with open field tackles.
That's interesting. So, Matt, I'm going to counter that. I'll go right to you, right? Treme Edmonds and Matt Milano, do you think that they're kind of up to the task to kind of deal with a Leonard Fournette coming out the backfield? And, okay, just answer that.
No, so I do think they are up to the task. I mean, you got Milano. Milano is a top 5 graded linebacker in the league in coverage and in just run stopping. So I do think that they are up to the task. But the issue is that we haven't played a team with this many weapons on in the pass game. So I think he's going to have a lot more of his hands full with Gronk than kind of worrying about Lenny. I hope that they're the guys up front can win their matchup, so it makes it a little easier on a guy like Edmonds to clean stuff up. So I do think that they are up to the task, but it all depends on how well they're passing the ball too.
All right. I mean, it remains to be seen, right? We know that the Buccaneers have a great offensive attack, and I guess we will see come Sunday how that kind of will fare out. But also on the flip side, like the Buffalo Bills, I guess this game for me, it forces us to our strength. And what I mean by that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they just don't allow people to run on them, right? Like maybe here and there, but like for the majority of games, they stop the run. Them and the Saints, it's like just a no-go. So the Buffalo Bills, we don't run good anyway. Like we don't have a good running back. So I'm going to go to you, Matt, first. How do you feel about our offensive attack, right? Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, he probably will play. He's a truther. Emmanuel Sanders, Gabe Davis, even Dawson Knox, even though he didn't have necessarily a great game last week. Do you think that is an advantage for us? Because the Buccaneers secondary have been susceptible to an air raid attack. So how do you feel about that? Is this a 4 wide game?
Honestly, I'm going to go with because at like you said, we haven't been able to run the ball. I know there's been like some mentions, maybe Dable's going to try to force some running in because, people keep talking about how we cannot run the ball. But I know we talk about on here, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Throw the ball. We're wasting first and second downs with these runs. I always say the running backs run up through the holes like the controller died on Madden. They just kind of just go straight through. There's no cutting outside, none of that. So I do hope it's a 4 wide game because that is obviously our ultimate strength. We have, our wide receiver 4 can be a wide receiver 2 on any other team in Gabriel Davis. And this is a homecoming for him this week. I know you mentioned he has like 30 family members coming to the game to watch. So I do, if you're looking for, maybe like a high or a many team fantasy league sleeper or something this week, you might want to throw Gabe in there. But I do think that we have to, play to our strength, which is throwing the football. We're going to be in nice conditions too. So let them come out and let it fly.
Interesting. So David, the best thing, I guess, in my opinion, that can combat a offensive attack as far as, on the outside of the field is one in the trenches, right? Winning that offensive line, defensive line battle, getting pressure on the quarterback. And obviously the Buccaneers can do that, right? We know that. Like they have the dogs on the line and even the linebackers, right? So do you think this is a situation where Todd Bowles is gonna kind of, I don't want to use the word manufacture pressure, but he's gonna try to go after Josh Allen to get him off his rocker? Do you think that that's kind of where it's going?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, even the fastest wide receivers in the National Football League can only run so far in 2 seconds, right?
Right.
And you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers secondary; they've got some speed. Especially Jamel Dean is their fastest defensive back, on the field. They don't really travel necessarily, so you're not going to necessarily see Jamel Dean stick to Stephon Diggs or anything like that. I still think Carlton Davis is the matchup they're going to want to have on Stephon, but Stephon is significantly faster, I think, than Carlton Davis. And so expecting Antoine Winfield to probably stay high. If Richard Sherman is on the field, also expect him to stay high a little bit. But at the same time, Josh Allen, going all the way back to his entry into the National Football League, not the most accurate quarterback necessarily under pressure, and no quarterback. That's not a dig. Any quarterback is going to be less accurate under pressure. It doesn't matter who you are. So the faster they can get pressure on Josh Allen, the more likely it is that, one, the wide receivers haven't had time to get fully into their routes. If they haven't been able to break out of their stem, then that's only going to be advantageous to the secondary and to the defense and what Todd Bowles does. Now, if the Buffalo Bills are able to keep that pass rush from getting home, where Josh Allen is able to anticipate it and escape like he does, both of these teams have a similar strength in preventing their quarterbacks from getting sacked. I think the Buffalo Bills are second in the NFL with second fewest sacks of their quarterback. The Buccaneers are right there, I think, at fourth. Now, I would say the Buccaneers pass protection a little bit more organic because Tom Brady's not escaping very many sacks, right? Josh Allen can do that for his offensive line, but it still speaks to their pass protection for their quarterback. So you obviously expect pressure from Todd Bowles. He's a very aggressive type defensive coordinator, but he's also not afraid to dial it back. He's not afraid to necessarily say, listen, you're beating us, you're beating what I have, so I'm going to go ahead and back off a little bit. Buccaneers fans hate seeing this team go into zone coverage. I also hate seeing this team go into zone coverage, but they will, if they need to, go into a mode where they say you're going to have to grind out this drive. You're going to have to spend 6 minutes to get this touchdown or to get this field goal, because we have that much faith in, one, our ability to stop your rush, and two, our ability to clamp down in the red zone. So it's 6 minutes, 70-yard drive that finishes with 3 points feels like a bigger defeat for the offense than it does for the defense.
Interesting. I kind of want to do this, right? I kind of want to do like a narrative type of thing. And I want to go to our expectation versus reality segment. And before we do that, Matt, can you please let the people know who's sponsoring this segment?
Yes, this segment is brought to you by the good people at Buffalo Pet Supply. Do you have a pet? Are you looking into getting a pet, or know someone who has a pet? And there's only one place to send them to make that pet live his best life: Buffalo Pet Supply. Specializing in fish, small animals, and reptiles. Buffalo Pet Supply has everything you need to get you set up or maintain whatever setup you may have. Stop down and see the family-owned and operated staff at 1345 Military Road in Kenmore, or give them a call at 716-874-1951. And make sure you mention our name, Overdue Bills Podcast. You get 10% off your purchase.
All right, shout out to Buffalo Pet Supply, where your expectation is their reality. All right, I kind of want to do this narrative thing because Matt talked about it earlier today, that if you asked him week one, about this game, he kind of had a different tone. And I guess, I'm sure, Dave, you could say the same thing, right? Like, looking at the schedule, like that's a game that I'm sure the whole league circled, right? You know what I mean? Coming into the season, defending champs. We went to the AFC title game, against the Chiefs. We came up short. But I want to kind of ask now the feeling with the Tampa Bay fans and even yourself, right, about the Buffalo Bills. We're kind of on a downward spiral. Is it like more of a confidence thing, or is it more of a this may be a letdown spot for the Buccaneers? How do you feel? What's the narrative?
I think everybody, I think the fans and most of the media are expecting the Buccaneers come into this game locked in and essentially treat this like a playoff game. The Buffalo Bills came into the season as a widespread Super Bowl favorite. I actually picked the Bills and the Buccaneers to face off in Super Bowl 56. And listen, really all that matters is getting into the tournament, right? If you're not the number one seed, you're playing on wild card weekend, and in a lot of facets, having that week off to start the playoffs really kind of comes back to bite a lot of teams. When they do have to step on the field, now you're facing a team. There's something to be said about winning playoff caliber games and high pressure situations. So sometimes going through that wild card weekend really strengthens a team. They come into the divisional round against a team that's been off and hasn't had that experience, and it kind of gives them a little bit of that advantage. So games like this one, whether you win or lose, I think it helps a playoff team. Obviously, you have to make the playoffs. So even if the Buffalo Bills come out and lose this game, I think looking at the rest of your team's schedule, you have 3 games that you can arguably say the Buffalo Bills should be able to win fairly simply. So you're looking at a 10-8 record at worst, probably, or a 10-7 record, probably going against the New England Patriots. See what the weather is like, right? I think it's going to have a big part to do with that rematch. But if the Buffalo Bills can steal that one, you're looking at 11 wins. I think in the AFC, 10 wins still gets you into the tournament. That's all you really need. So if that happens, you're going to learn something from this game, win or lose. Doesn't matter which side wins or loses. They're going to benefit from a matchup like this one. And the Buccaneers are definitely coming in. They're looking to continue their newest winning streak after their 2-game losing streak they had earlier in the season. And they're looking to get some of those live repetitions and have the live rounds flying against a playoff caliber team. Believe me, nobody is looking at this Buffalo Bills squad, I think, as a serious underdog or as kind of a team that isn't worthy, I guess, necessarily of the pomp and circumstance that comes with the playoff caliber matchup.
Interesting. Matt, how do you feel coming into this game?
Yeah, so I mean, it's kind of the same. Obviously, both teams really want to win this game and kind of need to win this game because you want, like he said, if you're not the number one seed, then you're playing on wild card weekend. I'm pretty sure the Bucks don't want to play in Lambeau in the playoffs, being a lower seed than Green Bay. They want to play in Tampa, right? Because Arizona's looking like I don't know what their remaining schedule is, but they're kind of looking like they're trending towards that number one seed. But same thing with us. I mean, we kind of have to win if we want that number one seed dream to stay alive. Luckily, there's kind of this log jam in the AFC that where it's we're the masters of our own destiny. We haven't been able to do it this year. We went on a crazy run last year, and I'm hoping this week starts it out. And there's been another narrative that this Buffalo Bills team is where Tampa was last year at this point in the season, and then this is when they started their run and when they won the Super Bowl. So then, the narrative is obviously both teams are coming in. We're probably going to get their best, and I'm excited to watch this game. I'm going to say this: the money, the heavy money, is on the over. So there, Vegas is at least expecting a shootout.
Interesting. I'm glad you said that because I do want to get into our over/under segment where we kind of feel, or see how we feel necessarily about the game and which direction it's going to go. And with that shootout being said, I do want to talk about Tom Brady and Josh Allen passing yards over under because it's kind of high. It's kind of high. And I want to start with Tom Brady. It's 297.5. I know Tom Brady's been on a tear. I know he's, every time you look up at fantasy, it's like a 4 or 5 touchdown day. It's kind of insane. But Dave, I want to go to you first. How do you feel about that? Over under 297.5.
Yeah, I feel like he'll hit over 300. I think I think that's a realistic expectation in this game. For one, the Buccaneers love to pass the ball. Like that's what Bruce Arians likes to do. He wants to pass first. He doesn't really want to run all that well. So you don't really need to give the Buccaneers too many excuses to throw the ball versus run the ball. And much to the chagrin sometimes of the fan base, they'll pass the ball in 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3 type situations when you have a guy like Leonard Fournette. But yeah, and Tom loves to throw the ball as well. And when he's given the decision, the possibility, if he thinks he can get a pass off, then he's going to take that. So yeah, I mean, 300 yards or more is what I expect in this game from Tom Brady.
Interesting, Matt.
Yeah, and obviously watching Tom Brady for the last 20 years of my life, I can never really go against him and what I think he can do. So with Trey White in the game, I may have gone under. but I'm gonna have to go over just with the guys on the outside. I don't think they're gonna be able to do. I think they're gonna give up a couple chunk plays, maybe to a Mike Evans or a Chris Godwin in the game. It'll boost that yardage up for Tom.
Interesting. Josh Allen, 282.5 over under Matt.
I'm gonna go over. I think we're gonna have to throw the ball. Like I said, I'm expecting a shootout myself. So I think he's gonna go over just because of the fact we're gonna have to throw that football.
Dave?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good line. I think that's a better line. I think that's a little bit closer than I think the Tom Brady line is. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if both quarterbacks go over 300 yards in this game.
Interesting. I want to talk about Leonard Fournette now, since Dave spoke very, very, very highly of him, right? About 7 nicknames there. And seriously, kind of called him like the main focal point of the offense, right? Kind of that stirs the drink. And I just want to frame it this way. Leonard Fournette over under 88 yards from scrimmage, whether rushing and receiving. So just 88 total yards over or under, Dave.
Yeah, I would go over. I think that initially, I think the Buffalo Bills are going to come out and they're going to try to limit the explosive plays, like you just mentioned there. And I think that's the smartest thing to do. But again, that's going to feed into a lot of Leonard Fournette getting involved early. And then again, if the Buccaneers can carve out a lead into the later part of the third quarter, or even the fourth quarter, you're going to see more Leonard Fournette on the ground. But I think 88 yards, 90 yards or more combined scrimmage yards is definitely a reasonable goal for Leonard in this contest. Unless, I mean, if the Buffalo Bills go all out with pressure and just say we're going to live by the sword, die by the sword, man up on the outside and do everything they can to pressure Tom Brady, then maybe that number is going to get hindered. I think either comes brutally short, like 45 yards or so total, because the Bills force the Buccaneers to look deeper than what Leonard Fournette is capable of doing, or he'll hit 90 to 100.
Interesting. Matt, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, the total, I'm gonna go with over. Just because they have so many weapons, I think he will be able to break free in the pass game, and also he's gonna get the bulk of the carries, right? So he's been getting. I don't think he's had a game less than, I think, 44 yards is a stat I might be wrong on that earlier, rushing wise. So I think he's gonna go. What was it? You said 80 and a half?
88.
Oh, 88 and a half. Yeah, I'll still go over for the combined.
Interesting. I do want to. Let me just say this. I'm not gonna ask y'all because I may or may not be playing this. They have Mike Evans at 56.5, and I just don't understand why. I don't understand why. And if you do, dabble in certain things, you might want to hit the over on that one. That's a free one for me. But I do want to ask about the Bills defense, because I think like we're gonna need some things to happen in order for us to win. So over under 2 turnovers from the Buccaneers, right? Whether that be an interception or fumble, on the Buccaneers side, do you think that's gonna happen, Matt? Do you think the Bills are gonna force 2 turnovers?
Well, I think to win the game, you're gonna have. Historically, in those three wins that we had against Tom Brady, he averaged 3 or more turnovers. I know I was at the game where he threw 4 picks. So you gotta make him turn the ball over to win the game. So I'm gonna go with over, just because of the fact, that it's gonna be my recipe to win. So that we need that to win. So I'm gonna go with over.
Dave.
Yeah, the line being right at 2 is the hard part, because obviously if it sits at 2, then it's just a push and nobody really wins. I think that's smart on the books to really do that, force you into that 1, which you kind of feel like this is one of those matchups, especially if it does turn into a shootout. I mean, balls bounce, a certain way, or a pass falls short or goes too long, and those types of things just kind of happen. Or I mean, even a halftime Hail Mary that gets intercepted, that counts, even if it doesn't impact the game. I think if I was forced to put money on under over 2 turnovers from the Buccaneers total, I think I'd go over. I mean, the Buffalo Bills defense is very good. They're very solid, and even without Tre'Davious White, they still have playmakers on the field. And again, if they open the door to the possibility of Tom Brady taking more shots, just the opportunity to undercut a route or to have a deflection or a tip pass go their way, I think is still there. So if I had to put money on that, I don't like that number. So good job to the books for that, because that's what their job is to do, is make you uncomfortable. I think I'd take the over just because I can't take 2 by itself.
Right. In other words, stay away, everybody. But
I'm not going to put money on that, but if I had to, I'd probably take the over.
Interesting. And I just want to throw this out there, and we're going to go really into predictions right now. This may be a little selfish. Is this, Dave, do you think this is a multiple touchdown game by Gronkowski over 1.5? Is this that, Gronk, he can have these blow up games, and I don't know. I mean, I guess the Bills defense being the way they are, it may be that type of feeling. I'm kind of leaning that way, that Gronk can be the beneficiary of the touchdowns. If not him, probably Mike Evans. But do you think that this is, can we lean that way or no?
I think the Buffalo Bills probably come in looking to try to take Gronkowski away. I think they know that he's that safety blanket. Obviously, he's the best friend that Tom Brady has on the team. So I would look for the Buffalo Bills defense to do everything they can to keep the ball out of Gronk's hands. Interestingly enough, though, Rob Gronkowski has 6 touchdowns this year, and he only has touchdowns in 3 games. Each of those games, he's scored 2 touchdowns. So right now, if Gronk scores 1 touchdown, he's scoring 2, and he only needs one more multi-touchdown receiving game to tie Antonio Gates for the NFL history's most multi-touchdown game for a tight end. So I'm sure that Gronk would probably like to do that against the Buffalo Bills, a team that he's obviously very familiar with. So I look for Tom Brady to target Gronkowski early, but I also look for the Buffalo Bills to try to take him away. And again, with the other weapons that are possibly available, I think this probably, if I had to go 0 or 2, because that's just kind of the trend with Gronk this year, is he either scores none or he scores 2 of them, I'd probably go none.
Interesting. Matt, how do you feel? Because I'm going to say 2. I think that especially what David just said, I know Tom Brady knows that, right? Gronkowski, he knows that the record is out there, and they go for records. It's just a fact. But Matt, how do you feel?
They absolutely do.
No. Yeah, I'm gonna go under. I mean, it's gonna be Milano and Poyer. They're gonna be. I think they're gonna be shading him a lot all game. So I don't know if he's gonna be able to get 2. So I'm gonna go under.
Interesting.
I don't have that big of an analysis for that, but
no, I understand. Yeah. I might just put it on single. But anyways, Matt, so give me your score prediction, man. How, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers -3. That's interesting. The line is there. I don't know necessarily how I feel about that. But nonetheless, -3. But how do you feel about that, Matt? Give me your score prediction.
Yeah, so my score prediction, I'm gonna stick with Vegas. I'm gonna go with the shootout. I'm gonna go with a very high scoring game, and the Bills are gonna walk out of there with a 38-31 victory.
Jesus, 38-31. All right, Dave, tell me what's really gonna happen.
So I will tell you this: ever since the Buccaneers came out of their bye week, they've only won games where they've made history. They've either made some sort of NFL history or they've made franchise history. So Rob Gronkowski tying Antonio Gates for the most multi-touchdown games by a tight end in NFL history would certainly fit that bill. However, Tom Brady is 18 completions away from passing Drew Brees for the most pass completions in NFL history, and he only needs 2 touchdown passes to be the first quarterback to throw 700 career touchdowns in combined postseason and regular season play. So I think that's where the records get set in this game, is 18 or more completions from Tom to pass up Drew Brees, and then 2 more touchdown passes to hit 700. And I have the Buccaneers winning 34-24.
Interesting. 34-24. I know. 38-31. I don't know. I really don't. I don't necessarily have a read on this. Everybody knows on the show I'm a realist. I haven't been high on the Bills, this season. But we had a lot of comments last show. I kind of railed on the Bills, and they were upset at me. They said, "Is this a Bills show or not?" So I'm going to refrain. I'm going to refrain. I love the fans. I love you in the comments. So I'm going to refrain. I'm not going to tell you how I feel about the game. But I do, obviously, I want the Bills to win. So, you know what I mean? Let's just see what happens. So let me just say this. We definitely appreciate you, David, for your time. And can you just let the people know where they can find you once again?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at dharrison82. The show is Locked On Bucks again 5 days a week, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and then over at bucksnation.com, part of SB Nation, covering the Buccaneers. If you're interested in Washington, Locked On Washington Football Team Podcast is my other show, and then si.com, you can find me covering the Washington Football Team for that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hopefully we do play the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl. We can bring David on. We can talk about this all over again. All right.
I'll tell you this, guys.
Yes.
If the Buffalo Bills lose, keep that tournament in mind, because in theory, it might actually be better to lose to the Buccaneers if you face them again in the Super Bowl than face him in the Super Bowl with him mad because you already beat him.
You're absolutely right. I do agree. And really seeding,
too.
For
what that's worth.
Yeah, for what it's worth. And AFC seed. We're going to talk about it in another show. Matt, can you just do these things? Let the people know about the contest, and then can you please let the people know about our Facebook and IG store?
Yes. So the contest, we said it on the show the other day. It's the same one we run, just like me and David just gave our score prediction. You're going to give your score prediction. And as a tiebreaker, you're going to give what you think the total offensive yards the Buffalo Bills will come out with on Sunday's game. And then you're going to tag 2 people and get them involved, or if they don't want to get involved, it's whatever. So that's going to be our contest. And, if we don't have a winner, obviously, that has a correct score, we go to the closest to the total offensive yards. We give away a $30 gift card to our lovely sponsor at Buffalo Wing Kings. And then our Facebook and Instagram store. We have our website store. Obviously, you go on overduebillspod.com, but now you can shop. You can just click directly from Facebook and Instagram and shop right on there. So make sure you check that out. Get your Overdue Bills gear. If you're out in Tampa, we ship everywhere. So, just everywhere in the country, everywhere in the world, we ship everywhere. So if you're watching this and you want something, check it out and buy it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Definitely appreciate you. We want you to like, share, rate, review, subscribe, all of those amazing things. We thank you for tuning in. And you know how we end every show with a little bit of hey, 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 hey.
Hey, you're going to need a lot of that this week.
We're going to need a lot of it, baby.